We're here this morning to share in a moment of reflection, to honor the victims of those whose lives were taken by acts of gun violence in 2020 and 2021. Gun violence, as you know, has been on the rise in our city since December of 2019. We're seeing more shootings than we have in decades. In January of 2021 alone, there have been close to 100 shootings and 6 deaths. When we hear these statistics, it's easy to view them only as numbers, but it's important to remember that each number represents a child, a parent, a friend, or a neighbor whose life was taken too soon. Today, we want to honor them and their legacies. We want to hold them in our thoughts. We must use their stories to inspire our ongoing work to address and prevent future gun violence. Gun violence is a public health issue, and it's essential to diagnose and treat the problem just like we would a virus. All of us agree the time for action is now. The Office of Violence Prevention has made a video that honors each person whose life was taken by gun violence in Portland in 2020 and 2021. My colleagues will then have some remarks to share after. Keelan, can you please play the video for us? Thank you. And I'd like to thank Nike Green and the Office of Violence Prevention for putting that together. Colleagues?
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Mapps.
Mr. Mayor, colleagues, I'd just like to take a moment to thank the Office of Violence Prevention for that powerful presentation. I have served on this council for 34 days. And in that time, Portland has seen 108 shootings and 8 homicides, including guns. If we go back 1 year to January 2020, Portland had just 51 shootings and only 1 person died from gun violence. On this issue, my heart and my head say that this must change. The rise of gun violence is unacceptable. I believe that we must come together as a council and as a community to end the violence. I want to reassure the public that this is an issue that my colleagues and I work on every day. Here are some examples of some of the things that I'm doing in my capacity as your representative on City Council. First, as the Commissioner for the Bureau of Emergency Communications, I'm working with my staff to look at how we prioritize 911 calls. Our goal here is to make sure that we are getting the proper response to gun violence as soon as possible. Second, also in my capacity as the BOET Commissioner, we are working with the Mayor's Office and with the Police Bureau to see what we can do to speed up police response times to calls that involve gun violence. Third, as your City Commissioner, I pledge to support gun violence prevention programs. Fourth, I also pledge to support violence interruption programs like those sponsored by the Office of Violence Prevention. And fifth, I pledge to embrace the practice and the politics of peace. Violence is a disease as contagious as any virus. The only way to break the cycle of violence is to embrace the politics of peace. So let me conclude this morning by asking every Portlander to join me in rejecting violence and choosing peace. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's the end of my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Mapps. Commissioner Hardesty, you're up next, and then Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Rubio put her hand up first. I was just so still in the moment of the video that I had not responded. So I'll go after Commissioner Rubio. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. And first of all, I want to take a moment, like my colleagues, to appreciate this time, and also the Office of Violence Prevention, their team, for lifting up this moment to honor these individuals who lost their lives to gun violence. These losses are felt uniquely painfully here today, and it's also a very terrible reality that right now this is an epidemic, and it's plaguing communities around the country, and every single demographic has felt the sting of violence, but especially in our young people, which is absolutely breaking my heart, and I know it breaks everybody's heart when we learn this. And in my work at a youth-serving nonprofit, over and over again, we witnessed this violence that was disproportionately happening in our BIPOC communities among young people. And the damage that it leaves is absolutely devastating to families, to the whole community network that was touched by these lives, that this person is connected to in school and work and life, and in community. And that's why the work of these agencies and partnerships with city and county are so very important, because they prevent violence in order to save lives, and also have been doing so for decades in some cases. So we need to listen to community. We need to listen to them. And as well as we need to listen to impacted families to tell us what's working and to tell us where we can do more or what we can do differently. And in honor of these victims, we as a council, and I heard Commissioner Mapps say this too, that we need to recommit ourselves to doing the hard work in our communities to get to these root causes of violence and focus on community-centered solutions. And so now's the time for all of us to double down in our work with trusted leaders and with communities that are impacted, and organizations who are in this work for real to make our community safer for children and families, but especially for frontline communities who are bearing the brunt of this violence. Just yesterday, we engaged in a work session where we talked about all these upstream interventions in a culturally responsive way, so that we're catching these situations before they escalate to violence. But underneath it all, we need a foundation of trust with community, and we need to build meaningful partnerships based on that trust and mutual respect. We owe it to the faces that we just witnessed to do the hard work to make this a reality, and that deep recommitment to community and doing all it takes to build a safe and thriving Portland is a tribute that I hope that we can make to these victims in today and in the coming months. So thank you for the opportunity, Mayor, to say something.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. Commissioner Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, for this pre-gavel moment. And thank you, Nike Green and your team at the Office of Violence Prevention. That was powerful. I was really slow to raise my hand because I was kind of numb. So thank you for leveling us. We needed that. My heart is with the families in our city who have lost loved ones to gun violence. The spike in gun deaths that we are collectively witnessing is nothing short of an absolute tragedy. Gun violence is complex, and it's deeply rooted in inequitable systems that exist in our culture. This is a public health crisis, and addressing this very real safety concern in our city requires a renewed emphasis and commitment to find ways to address this crisis. As a council, we have that obligation to work together to prioritize solutions, and this is definitely one of them. That means building and strengthening upstream supports, working directly with the communities that are impacted and using data, and I never forget there are people behind the data, to ensure that we're successful. I look forward to working with my colleagues, especially my colleagues in charge of emergency response bureaus, to offer whatever support I can on this issue. And again, my heart goes out to those of you who've lost loved ones in this growing epidemic. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. And Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you so much, Nike Green, for a very powerful video representation. I also want to speak directly to the families because unfortunately I've spent a lot of time comforting moms and family members who have lost loved ones to gun violence. And it is a devastating loss of potential and opportunity for so many of our community members. I am pleased to say that as a council, we are collectively addressing this as a public health issue, not trying to find simple solutions to very complex problems, being open to innovation, like talking to the people most impacted by policing, Black men between 14 and 44, making sure that they are part of what we build to make sure that we're reducing gun violence in Portland. We also know since the pandemic began in March, we've seen over 150% increase in domestic violence. We know that many of the deaths that we saw in the video can be tied directly to domestic violence related issues. What we know is that we have people who are desperate, who've had no income and have no hope. It is our job as the council to provide that hope for these families who've been devastated, for a community who has to see us collectively setting a vision for where we're headed, and then for us in our own individual bureaus to figure out collectively, how do we make sure that we're building the safety net that hasn't existed for decades? We have a lot of work to do. I look forward to continuing to partner with the Office of Violence Prevention to see how we can collaborate both with the county and their outreach workers and frontline community-based organizations who have those deep relationships. I think a missing piece is also those coming back from incarceration, because we send people back with nothing and somehow expect them to fully function with housing and employment and et cetera, et cetera. Mayor, it was funny to find out that you and I had the same vision about honoring these people who left our community too soon at the hands of gun violence. And I appreciate your collaborative approach to allowing all of us to honor these families and make the commitment that their deaths will not be in vain. What we build coming out of this pandemic will honor where we're moving as a city. So I thank you for your partnership on this. I'm grateful to all my colleagues and the how collectively we all share both the devastation and the obligation to do better. We know what doesn't work, so now we have the chance to figure out what does work and do it together. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.